Hello everyone and welcome back to our 8th episode of Math Past Year Papers on ZNotes Live. I'm your host Yukan, I'm here with Devandhira, and today we will continue with the IGCSE Math with Paper 2, Paper 4-2, or the second extended math paper variant 2 from the May-June 2020 exam. On to you, Devan.
Right, thank you, Yugan. And as Yugan said, we'll be continuing our IGCSE Maths paper, continuing from paper 22, and now we're going to do paper 42. So, without further ado, let's get started with the first question. Right, so the first question asks us to divide $24 in the ratio of 7 to 5. Right, so basically we have to split $24 in that ratio to 7 to 5. So my way of doing this is that let's first find what the 7 is. So if I want to find what the 7 is, I put 7 in the numerator, divide by the total ratio. Then by total ratio, I mean by 7 plus 5. That means that's the total parts, correct? You good?
Mm-hmm.
You have to divide that and multiply by our number, our cash in this case. Well, we'll get 14. So that means our 7 represents 14. If you want to get the 5, just 24 minus 14. You don't have to do some calculation anymore. Like, you just have to take the difference of 24 and 14, and you'll get the rest, because 7 represents 14. That means 24 minus 14, which is 10, is the 5. Is that right, Yugan?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So next question. We're going to write $24.6 as a fraction of $2,870. Very big difference, yeah? Give your answer in its lowest terms. Of course, it's already quite straightforward for this one. You just have to divide 24.6 by 2,870 right here. You want to simplify that? You can put that in your calculator, of course, and you get your free 2 marks. The answer is 3 by 350. Right. Next one. Write 1.92 as a percentage of 1.6. That means, well, yeah, that's straightforward actually. What's 1.92 and 1.6 as a percentage? So of course you see that 1.92 is bigger than 1.6. That means your answer should be more than 100%. Is that right, Yugan? So how do you get that?
Yep.
Of course we write 1.92 in the numerator divided by 1.6. But because you want to get percentage, don't forget to multiply by 100. Now you can just calculate that. You get 120, and it's by our intuition. It's greater than 100, so it should be correct, right? You get?
Mm-hmm.
Anything you wanna add?
Yeah. No, this is all very straightforward stuff.
Okay, let's move on. 1B. In a sale, the original prices are reduced by 15%. That means there's a 15% discount. Calculate the sale price of a book that has an original price of $12. Right, so it has a $12 as an original price. We have to count its discounted price, right? You can? Right. So that means if it's reduced by 15%, it's basically saying it's the 85% of that value of $12 in this case. Or in other words, it's just 100 minus 15, which is 85. But because it's in percentage, you divide by 100 right here. So you just have to multiply that by 12, and you should get 10.2. But don't forget, when you're writing in money or in dollars, don't forget that it's 2 decimal places. Right, Yugan?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Next one. Calculate the original price of a jacket that has a sale of 38.25. Sure. So that means the discounted price is 38.25, but we have to look for the original. What was the price before it was discounted? Right. Of course, we can do that. Oh, sorry about that. Right. So of course you can do that. So instead of writing it this way, we reciprocate it, as you can see. The reason is that, so let's take a look at this equation again. This is the discounted price, right? This is the discounted price. This is the original price, right? Correct? So if I move this to your other side, it's basically 100 over 100 minus 15. multiplied, right? That means
Yep.
the right hand side, represents how you can count the original price from the discounted price. So it's the same thing for this one. We have the discounted price. We just have to multiply it like this, and you get the original price, which is $45 in this case. So you can write it down, and your 2 marks is in your pockets. Anything you want to say, Yugan, in here?
No?
Okay, so next question. Dean invests $500 for 10 years at a rate of 1.7% per year simple interest. Calculate the total interest earned during the 10 years. Sure. So you can use the formula for simple interest, which is the PRT over 100, where P is the principal, the initial money, the R is the rate, in this case is 1.7, and T is the time, which is 10 years, so it's just 10. Right. So we just have to plug it in. We put P as 500, P as 500, R as 1.7, and T as 10. You don't have to write the percentage here. You don't have to, because you already have the over 100. That already represents the percentage. Agree, Yugen? Right.
Yep.
So after you did this, just calculate that, and you should get 85. Okay, next question. Ollie invests 200% at a rate of 0.0035% per day compound interest. Calculate the value of Ollie's investment at the end of 1 year. Sure. So simple interest has its own formula. Of course, compound interest has its own formula again. So for compound interest, this is the formula right here. So it's just the same, basically, where P is the initial money, the principal, and R is the rate, and T is the time taken. So in this case, our principal is 200, and our R is just 0.0035. But since this rate is per day, that means we have to put 365 as our time, because 365 is 1 year. So it counts per day. That means it's 365, not to the power of 1. Okay. Now we can just, of course, put this in our calculator again, calculate it, and you should be getting this. And well, indeed, that is the answer. Is there anything you want to say here, Ethan?
No, this is all very straightforward stuff.
Okay. Right. So next question. It's a vector question. So there was a small mistake here, but it's okay. I fixed it. It's okay. Right. So we have to find the vector 2p plus q, and here's p and q. This is also, of course, straightforward again. Just put p here, multiply by 2. Don't forget about that. You add by q. Okay. Right. So we just have to, because this is a scalar multiplying a vector, you multiply each element here, right? You can.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So that means you have 8 over 10. Not 8 over 10. 8, 10. Then since you're adding to this vector, you just have to add the elements respectively, right? So 8 minus 2, and the y vector is 10 plus 7. Right? The y component, sorry. And of course, you can just add them, and you get 617. And of course, that's the answer. So next one is that find the norm of p, the norm or the magnitude, up to you, but I like to call it magnitude. So basically, this is asking what's the length of p? What's the length of the vector p? So of course, it's just Pythagoras. I can show you. Okay, let's say you have a vector like this. So what's the length of this? So you can take the x-coordinate right here, and the y-coordinate. And you see that this is just Pythagoras, right? That means you have to use Pythagoras on each element. So right here, we have 4 square plus 5 square. But remember, in Pythagoras' theorem, it's equal to c square. So you have to take the square root. And you should be getting 6.4 as the answer. Take 3 significant figures, so it's just 6.4 t. 6.4 t. Right. Anything in the add here, Egan?
No.
Okay. Right. So next question. A is the point 4, 1, and the vector AB, well, is equal to minus 3 and 1. So vector AB represents how you move from A to B. Correct, Yukan?
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to search for the coordinates of B. Sure. So we know the point A. If the way I move to A to B is -3 and 1, I just have to add the movement from the coordinates A, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that means you just have to add the vectors. So we have 4, 1 plus the vector AB. You just add them. So 4 minus 3 is just 1. And 1 plus 1, what's 1 plus 1? I don't know what that is. It's just 2, of course. Right, so that's our answer. It's just 1, 2. Right, so next one. The line y is equal to 3x minus 2 crosses the y-axis at G. Write down the coordinates of G. So lines that cross the y-axis is basically asking what's the y-intercept, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And when they're asking for y-intercept, that means the x-coordinate is 0, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So that means we let x become 0. You just put 0 here. But 3 times 0 is dead. So y is equal to just -2. That means our coordinate is just 0 and -2 right here. Agree?
Agree.
Anything you want to add here, Yugan?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, for 2B, you do have to understand the concept that if you do have a point and then you add the direction vector, like from A to B, you do get the point B. So that's a concept that you have to understand, and it's really useful when applying it to vectors. So this is just a question that demonstrates that basic knowledge.
Yep, exactly. So is that all?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. 2D. In the diagram, O is the origin. OT, here's OT, is 2 times of TD. So basically, if it's in terms of ratio, this is 2 and 1. And M is the point of TC. Right here, this is TC. OC is equal to the vector C, and OD is equal to the vector D. Find the position vector of M. Give your answers in terms of C and D in its simplest form. Sure. So we have position vector of M basically is asking to you what's OM, correct? What's this vector right here? How can we represent it in terms of C and D? So of course we can first realize that if you want to find OM, you first have to go to T, then to M. So you can write it as OT plus TM, right? The vectors OT and TM together. And we know that OT, right here, this is OT, is just 2/3 of D. Because this whole thing is D. Sorry, I'm very bad at drawing it. This whole thing is D. That means by this one right here, OT is 2 times of TD. That means OT is just 2/3 of D, right? Right. That means we know what OT is. Now the question is, what's TM? Right. So we want to find what TM is. So first we can realize that M is in the midpoint of TC, correct? From right here, this one. So that means we can write it as half of TC. Agree, Yugan?
Yeah.
Now the question is, what's TC? How do we find TC? So one way is that, of course, you can go to TD and DC, but we don't know what DC is, and that's gonna make things hard. So instead of going that way, the easier route is you go back to O, so it's TO, then C. Well, we know what OC is. It's just C. Right, Yugan?
Yeah.
So that means TC would be TO. So instead of 2/3 of D, it'll be -2/3 of D because it's going to the opposite direction. So you have to take the negative.
Yeah.
Now that you're in O, you're gonna go to C. You just have to add C, right? Right here. Oh, sorry. So overall, TM is represented as this vector. Agree, Yugan? All right. So now that we know what OT is and what TM is, just add them together and let's simplify. So right here, we can expand the half here. We can expand it, and simplify it. And you should be getting 1/3 D plus half C as your answer. Is that correct, Yugan?
Yep, that's correct. Uh, yeah. Here it can be quite a challenge trying to figure out what OT equals to 2TD means. So Devon demonstrates it really nicely that you have to add the coefficients together and then you divide it by the coefficient in front. So in this case, OT is two-thirds of the line OD and TD is one-third of the line TD, OD. So yeah, that's what it means, and that's something that you guys have to understand as well about vectors. This can be kind of a tricky topic for IG math students. So this is something that you must be aware of. So when you look at mark schemes, you guys can pick out, where you got wrong. It's usually uh, when they talk about ratios. You can continue, David.
Okay. Sorry. All right. So thank you for that, Yukan. Right. So let's move on to the next question. The speed v kilometers per hour of each 200 cars passing a building is measured. The table shows the results. So here's the table right here, of course, and you can see their speed in terms of intervals though, and their respective frequency. Let's say the speed between 0 and 20 are 16 cars, and same thing for the others. The ones between 20 and 40, there are 34 cars. Agree, you did? All right,
Yep.
and we're asked to calculate an estimate for the mean. So because this is an interval, we can't find its exact mean. We can only find the estimate. And how do you find the estimate? So the problem is that it's an interval. So we can take the midpoint of the interval as our average speed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we take the midpoint of each interval. Right here, I've already written it as 10. This one's 30. Then this one's 40, 42.5, and so on. And remember, we want to find an estimate for the mean. That means we have to multiply the value by the frequency, correct? And add them. So right here we
Mm-hmm.
have 10 times 16. That comes from this one. So we have 10 times 16 right here. Same thing, we have 30 times 34, which comes from here. And we do this for every data we have until the end, until 70 times 4 right here. And remember, when you're taking the average, you have to divide by the frequency, the total frequency, correct? And in this case,
Mm-hmm.
it's just 200. You don't have to add them together anymore. Just they told you it's 200, so it's just divide by 200. Right. So
Mm.
you have this whole thing right here. You can just put that in your calculator and be happy. You get 41.4. Agree, Yugan? Is this the correct
Yep.
answer?
Yeah, this is the correct answer.
Okay.
Over here, you need to be really careful because it is a really big fraction, and especially if your calculator doesn't have that good a display, you have to make sure that you put all your brackets correctly and then put a bracket around the whole thing and then divide that by 200. So yeah, that's something you need to be careful of.
Yep. Be careful on that. Yeah, Yugan's correct. Right. So let's move on to the next question. So it says use the frequency table to complete the cumulative frequency table. All right. So we're trying to make a cumulative frequency table, which is different from a frequency table. So cumulative right here means that it accumulates or adds up, correct? It
Mm-hmm.
keeps adding up from the previous values. So in this case, for the speed less than 20, there are 16 cars, right? Which is correct right here. But for the speed less than 40, there are 50 cars. Why? Because we have 16 plus 34.
Mm-hmm.
Agree? We have 16 plus 34. Same thing when it's 45. We have 100 and 112. Why? Because we have to add all of these frequencies. You see how they accumulate like that.
Mm.
So you can do that process only for these two values because they were the blank ones. And you should get these two as the answer. Are they correct, Yugen?
Yep,
Okay.
they are
So
correct.
anything you want to add here?
No, this is a very easy, straightforward
Oh,
question.
okay. So let's go for the next question. So on the grid, draw a cumulative frequency diagram. So from before that we got here, we've already put our data in, and now we just have to draw it. So right here, let's try plotting this point, 20 and 16. So it says that the speed was 20, That means that this is the x coordinate, while the frequency is 16. That means we have to draw it in the 16 here. Agree then? That means this is our point. This is our first point that we know the curve has to pass through. Then we have to do the same thing for the next one. Say this one. So it says that the speed is 40 and the frequency is 50. So we have 40, and right here this is 50. It's just in the middle of 60 and 40. Agree then? Right. So we just have to do everything for that. For the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and the last one basically. And make sure when you draw it, make a smooth straight line. I can't really draw it. I'm pretty sure you can do better than me. Especially with pencil. I think using a pencil is much easier. You just have to draw it like that. Make sure it passes through all the points. And you have your easy 3 marks. Alright, so let's go to the next one. Use your diagram to find an estimate of the upper quartile. Yugan, what's the upper quartile?
So that is the top 25% of your entire data.
Exactly. So that means in 200 frequency, our upper quartile has to be 150, right? Because this is this right here is 25%. Correct?
Yep.
Right. So that means we have to find what's the speed for the upper quartile. So we can make a line here. They actually give you, I think they give you points for making a line. And 150. See where it touches your curve. Then you bring it down here to the speed. And you should get about 48 right here. And that is the answer, right, Yugan? Is 48 the answer? All right, that's good then. Next one. The number of cars with a speed greater than 35 kilometers per hour. All right. The number of cars with speed greater than 35 kilometers per hour. So right here, wait, sorry, 35 kilometers per hour. Did I make a mistake here, Yugan? Is this correct? I feel like I made a mistake.
Oh, okay. If you do something like that, it's probably due to your diagram being really bad. So,
wait, is it?
Yes, David? No, it's 160. 160 is the correct answer. And
oh yeah, I made it 30 here. My bad.
Yeah.
my bad. Let me just do this again then from scratch. So it says that I'll erase this. Sorry about that, guys. Right. So we have the number of cars with speed greater than 35 kilometers per hour. So let's put 35 kilometers right here. Where's 35? So 35 should be here. Okay. And my diagram is bad, but I think this should be 40 if we approximate it. We just have to put a line right here. But it should be 40, right? I think it's just because my diagram is just really bad. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
So that means the 40 represents the car less than 35. But because we're trying to look for the cars greater than 35, that means it's 200 minus 40, correct? And the answer is, of course, 160 in blackboard. Okay, yep. 160. There you go. Okay, so next one. Two of the 200 cars are chosen at random. Find the probability that they both have a speed greater than 50 kilometers per hour. So right here, we can see that at 50 kilometers per hour, it corresponds to this point that we got before. And let's check at the back. So there are 170 cars which are less than 50 kilometers per hour, correct? But we're looking for greater than 50. That means instead of 170, we focus on the 30, which are greater than 50 kilometers per hour, correct? Right. So we're taking two cars. There are 30 cars greater than 50. And there are 200 cars in total. That means our first probability is 30 over 200. Agree then? The next car, because you've already taken one, the total should minus 1, correct? Decrease by 1. Same thing for the number of cars greater than 50 should be decreased by 1. So that means your next probability is 29 over 199. Then you just have to multiply them together, and you should get this as an answer. Is this correct answer, Yugan?
Yep, that's the correct answer.
Okay, so that means we're done. Easy 2 marks. Anything you want to add here?
Uh, Yeah, just be careful with your drawing and using diagrams to get estimates because you can easily go wrong there, especially when you draw your diagram really badly. So if your lines are just straight connect to each point and not a curve, you will probably get the wrong answer. Or if you have like really weird wonky lines. So make sure you sharpen your pencil and draw a straight, smooth line throughout the whole thing, and make sure you draw your straight lines correctly to get your best estimate, basically.
Yep, exactly. Don't make a mistake like I did. You see how bad my drawing is? All right, I'm sorry about that. So let's move on to the next question. A new frequency table is made by combining the intervals. Right. So this is our table right here. On the grid, draw a histogram to show the information in this table. Okay. All right. So as you can see right here, in our y-axis, we have the frequency density, and our x-axis is just the speed. Right. So our first data is that the speed is between 0 to 40. That means our graph should go somewhere like this, correct? From 0 to 40.
Mhm.
Now the question is, how do you find the frequency density? What is it?
The frequency density is the frequency divided by the data that you have.
Exactly. So right here, because our frequency is 50 and our interval is from 0 to 40, that means it has a length of 40, right? From 0 to 40 is just,
Mhm.
there's a 40 length. So our frequency density is just our frequency, which is 50 divided by 40. And 50 divided by 40 is just 1.25. That means our height of the graph is 1.25, right?
Mm-hmm.
Agree, Yugan?
Yep.
All right, so that's for the first part. Next part is for this one. Let's do the same thing. This time is 40 to 50. That means our graph should go from here to here. And our frequency density is 120 divided by the interval here, which is 50 minus 40, that is 10. So 120 divided by 10, that's just 12. So we can put the height 12 right here. And this should be correct. Same thing for the last one. We have 30 divided by 80 minus 50, which is 30. So 30 divided by 30, that's just 1. So we have the histogram going from 50 to 80, while the height is just 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's it. And anything you want to add here, Yugan?
Yeah, you should label the height of your lines, or else they won't actually know what you're talking about. So yeah,
So
like
this
you
one?
can draw a dotted line and then label
Okay.
it 12. And below, it's kind of impractical, so you can just write below your 1.25A1 just to indicate that that's
Okay.
the height. If you write it the other end, that's also fine. So
Okay.
yeah, when you're drawing a histogram like this, you should indicate the specific heights of your graph, just so it's clear that you're representing the data. This is just general advice if you're representing data.
Mm, that's correct. That's correct. Right. Okay. So let's go for the next question, yeah? Okay, so this diagram shows 2 triangles. We have the first triangle right here, and the second triangle, the bigger one. Calculate the length QR. Here's QR. So when I first see this question, QR, when we're looking for QR, I noticed that the length, we know that what this length is, which is 150, and I know what the length of this is 120, of course. And nicely, the angle opposite of this side is 25 degrees. So remember, we have the angle of the opposite side, and 2 adjacent sides of the angle are known. That means we should use the cosine rule here, correct, Egan?
Mhm.
Cosine rule. That means we have the cosine rule. So if you don't remember the cosine rule, here's the formula. A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of A, where A right here, big letter A, is the angle opposite of the side A, correct?
Mhm.
if you're kind of keep forgetting about cosine rule, just remember that this is basically like Pythagoras right here. If you can see, there's a Pythagoras, right? This is basically like
Yep.
Pythagoras, but on steroids. Agree, Yugan? Basically, there's another term in
Yeah,
Pythagoras
yeah.
plus another term. Pythagoras on steroids, basically. Right.
Basically.
So
There's a formula sheet for IG math, right?
no, there's no formula sheet.
Okay, okay. So yeah,
You have
then this
to
is
memorize this.
the equation we have to
Otherwise,
remember.
good luck memorizing. But if you keep practicing questions, you should be memorized. You should memorize already. Like it just
Yeah.
goes to your heart automatically, you know. Right. So let's get back to the question. So we're looking for QR. So let's put QR in A because we know that the opposite side of the 25 degrees is the QR. So we put QR here, right here, and the angles adjacent to the sides adjacent to the angle, which are 150 and 120, we put it in the B squared and C squared. So the same thing for here, we put minus 2B, which is 150, and the C is 120. And our cosine of A is just cosine of 25 degrees, because from here.
Hmm.
And we're looking for QR, but remember there's a square here, so we have to take the square root of both sides. And this one will cancel, and we'll have the square root of this whole thing. You can put this in your calculator, of course. I mean, you should put this in your calculator. You cannot put this in your head. And you should be getting 65.4.
Yep.
And 3 significant figures. And this is your answer. Anything you want to add here, Ethan?
No. Again, this is a very straightforward question, but you do have to memorize this formula because you can't have any help. You have no choice but to memorize the formulas that you have to use, which is unfortunate, but if you use it enough, it kind of just gets ingrained in your head, whether you like it or not.
Yep. The more you practice, the more you just get used to it. You already know it by heart. Right. So next question. Calculate RS. So RS is right here. This is RS. Right. We want to know what RS is. We don't know what the side is. That means we cannot use the cosine rule. Correct?
Oh yeah.
If there was a side here, I would use the cosine rule. But there's no side. That means we couldn't use the cosine rule. That means that leaves us with the sine rule. Only the sine rule. Why? Because right here we know this side here. And we can find this angle easily. Just 180 minus 55 and minus 45. You should get 80. So we know that this angle right here is 80. And we can use this angle to find the side, the RS. Correct? So we have this sine rule here. So the sine rule states that these ratios are equal. A over sine of A is the same as B over sine of B. That just basically means that this side divided by the sine of 55 degrees is the same as 150 divided by the sine of 80 degrees. Correct, Ethan? Right. So we have, well, usually in textbooks they give 3 of these, but you just have to take 2 of them. Right? You just get 2 of them. And we can just plug everything in. So for me, I let A become RS. So its angle, of course, the opposite angle is 55. And 150, then 80 degrees. 150 is right here. Then 80 degrees from here, of course. Right, and we can make RS the subject. We can multiply sine 55 both sides. And we should be getting this. And of course, you should put that in your calculator. And you should get 124.77. But because Cambridge wants you to simplify to 3 significant figures, 125. Agree?
Yeah.
All right. Anything you want to add?
Oh yeah, sorry. I do have something to add. If you have questions like this where you get some weird irrational number, they do allow 4 significant figures if you feel like it. But the standard is 3 significant figures. So we stick to that one, unless they
Okay.
say otherwise.
Okay. We are asked to find the total area of the 2 triangles. Sure, why not? So for this, we have to use this formula. It's the area of triangle, but triangle with the angle itself, though. So right, where AB is the adjacent sides to this angle C. So for this,
Mhm.
let's have a small example here. Let's calculate the area of this triangle. So right here we have the two adjacent sides, which is 150 and 120, correct?
Mhm.
And the angle in between is just 25 degrees. That means if you want to find this area, it's basically just half times 150 times 120 and sine of 25 degrees, which is exactly
Mhm.
what we have right here. Correct, Yugan?
Yep.
Right. So we should do the same thing for the other triangle, the bigger one, the big guy here. And we know that this side, we just found it in the previous question, is 124.77. That means you just have to do the same thing, but with that triangle. So we have it right here. The adjacent side is 150, and RS is 124.77, and the angle is 45. So you just put that in. Everything, just plug it in, basically. Because you want to add the total area, of course, you have to sum them. You have to add them. And you should be getting
Yeah.
about 10,420.5. You can put this as your
10,000.
answer instantly. Correct, Egan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, here, three significant figures. So they accept 10400. For some reason, they don't accept 10420, but they accept 10410. Oh no, it's in between. Okay, okay. So your
Oh,
answer does.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Due to like this kind of error that students do, like if you go back to the last question, Devan wrote down his answer as 124.77. Some students might just write it down as 125 and then use that 125 in the other question. And because they don't carry the exact value forward and they use the rounded value instead, you do get a wide range of answers. So CIS to accommodate for that, try and use the exact values. It's just good practice, and that is something you have to do when you go to A levels.
Exactly. That's correct, Egan. Right, so let's go for the next question. The diagram shows a field ABCD. This whole thing's ABCD. The bearing of B from A is 140. So this is 140 right here. B from A. Yeah, that. And C is due east of B and D. Sorry. C is due east of B, and D is due north of C. So right here, this is the east of C, and the north of C is just D. Right. And they tell you the length of each line. Basically, AB is 400, BC is 350, and CD is 450. Now we're asked to find the bearing of D from B. The bearing of D from B. What's the, this is technically saying B to D, correct? Wait, no, big D. B to D. That means we have to draw a line right here. And don't forget our north line. And this is the bearing that we want to look for, correct?
Hmm.
Right. So we know that this whole thing is 90 degrees, correct?
Yeah.
Right? 90 degrees. If we know what this angle is, we can just do 90 minus that angle, and we should get our answer, correct?
Hmm.
Right. So let's look for this angle. So we know that the opposite side is 450, and the adjacent side is 350. So we can use trigonometry here. We can use tangent inverse, right? We can use tangent because soka
Hmm.
toa for opposite and adjacent.
Yeah.
Right. So we can take the tangent inverse of opposite divided by adjacent. So it's 450 divided by 350. Tangent inverse that. Put in your calculator. You don't do that in your head, you'll die. You'll get 52.13. No, you should
Hmm.
get 52.13. Once you get this, don't forget that this is just the angle theta, not our answer yet. That means we still have to do 90 minus our angle, correct?
Hmm.
And you should get 37.87. But because actually for angles you should do one decimal place, correct? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. One
So you,
decimal place.
so you gotta make it to one decimal place. But because it's bearing, don't forget to put a 0 here because it's 3 digits in the
Hmm.
integer part. Correct? You good?
Yep.
Anything you want to
Um,
add?
yeah, if you notice that Devan calculated the theta that he drew in the diagram and then took 90 minus that. But 90 minus that angle is the same as angle BDC. So if you calculate the tangent of that, it's just inverse tan of 350 over 450, and you will get the same answer. So you can do it both ways. It's fine.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think of that. All right, that's a good one. All right, so next question. Calculate the distance of from D to A. That means this distance right here, D to A.
Mm.
Right. So it would be nice if we know what this length is and what this length is, because then we can use the Pythagoras, correct? We can use
Mhm.
Pythagoras. Right. So how do you do that? So first, the strategy is to extend the line here. I mean, there wasn't a line before. See, it was completely empty, but we draw a line there and make a right angle triangle. So make a right angle triangle, and with the angle here, because this is a straight line, so it's just 180 minus 140. So you should get 40 degrees. Now
Mm.
let's let's find this one first. This horizontal length. We know that this part from here, this is 350, correct? We just have to know what this part is, right?
Mm.
And how do we get this part? Of course, we can get it from here. So you see that this is the hypotenuse, and this is the opposite side. So we can use sine, correct?
Yep.
So we have sine 40 degrees is equal to 400 divided by this whole side, or in other words, it's just 400 of sine 40 degrees, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing is 400 sine of 40 degrees. Remember, we want to take the total distance of this horizontal length. That means you have to add by 350, and you should be getting 607.115 right here.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, we want to get the height of this triangle. We know that the whole thing is 450 from here. We just have to know what this length is because we want to take it off, right? You want to take it off.
Mm. Yeah.
So we have to get the length of this side, of course, because this is the adjacent side. So we take the cosine, which is just 400 cosine of 40 degrees. So after we get that, we can just 450 minus 400 cosine of 40. You should be getting about 403.582. Agree, you good?
Mm.
Now that we
Yeah.
know those two sides, we can take Pythagoras. Just put 607 here and then 143 here, and take the square root. Don't forget about that. You should get this answer. But remember, it's three significant figures, so it's 624. Agree,
Yep.
good?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's the correct answer.
Okay. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think you're moving really fast with the trigonometry because this is a
Oh,
problem
okay.
that's
Go ahead.
this is a big problem in IG math. A lot of people are just really weak in trigonometry because it's just been introduced and basic stuff like sine and cosine are already kind of struggles for them. Because I see in the IG math chat, a lot of the questions posted are really just basic trigonometry problems. So to do this question, you have to have a good understanding of uh, triangles, angles, and their relations with sine, cosine, and tan. So, uh, yeah, this is a really important thing that you guys have to revise on because some questions, this one is 6 marks. It carries a lot of marks, and it can save you if you know how to use it properly. So without sine and cosine, I don't think there's a really good way to approach this question.
Yeah, you have to use sine and cosine here.
Mhm. So
Okay.
yeah, just memorize your SOHCAHTOA, really learn how to do your sine and cosine, and you should be fine. It's really not that difficult. Because once you go to A level and you still think this kind of stuff is hard, you will die. It, it's
That's true.
it's downfall. True.
Yeah,
So
when you go
yeah,
to A level, it's sine and cosine just became graphs. It becomes a wavy graph. Oh, yeah, like that,
yeah,
right?
and like this kind of stuff is like nothing. So yeah, just uh, unless you're doing IG math just to pass and get a credit somewhere, in that case it's okay. But
Oh, okay.
if you're planning to do math later or as a subject, you will have to really learn how to do this. This all should be in the back of your head.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so thank you for that. You can actually, yeah, thank you. So let's go for the next one. Jono, Mr. Jono, not Jojo, Jono, runs around the field from A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A. Basically, the whole field. He runs at a speed of 3 meters per second. Calculate the total time Jono takes to run around the field. Give your answer in minutes and seconds, correct to the nearest second. Okay, sure. No. Okay. So of course, if you want to know the time, it'll be distance divided by speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hope you agree with that. That means we have to take the whole distance, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We have what's the whole distance? We know that this is 40, 350, and 450, and this is what we found before, which is this one right here, 623.86. I would use the more exact answer so we get a more accurate answer later on, rather than
Mm-hmm.
624. So I prefer using this. So our distance, the total distance, we just have to add them right here, and the speed is just 3 meters per second. So we divide by 3. Correct? You good?
Yeah, that's
Right.
correct.
And when you calculate this, you should get about 608. But remember, this is in seconds, so don't forget to write the seconds here, just to remind yourself that this is not in minutes or hours. Yeah, so you don't get much mistakes. And remember, but the question asks us to give our answer in minutes and seconds. So how many minutes is 608? How do we calculate that, Yugen?
Well, you know that in a minute you have 60 seconds. So one thing you can start with is dividing 608 by 60. So you would get 10 point something. So you would know that it's 10 seconds. I mean 10 minutes. And then the seconds part, because they give it as a decimal as minutes, you subtract the digit at the front and then you multiply by 60 again, and then you would get 8 seconds.
Exactly. So if we're gonna convert this, basically it's just divide by 60, right? That's the short
Mhm.
answer, basically. So you should get about 10 minutes and 8 seconds, and that is your answer. Is this the correct answer, Yugen?
Yeah, that's the correct answer.
Okay. Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, if anyone is wondering how Devan got t equals to d over s, s is speed, and you know that speed equals to distance over time. Just
Oh yeah.
multiply both t and divide both sides by
Yep.
speed.
Just switch
So
this around.
yeah, yeah, you can switch it around like that. Or if you
Okay.
remember the triangle, I think, yeah, they use
Triangle. Oh
triangles.
my god. I don't even. This one is it this one D
Yeah,
S
yeah.
D. Oh my god! I never used this before. Like this is so primary kid.
Oh my God, don't insult them like that, lah.
Oh,
But
sorry, 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 sorry.
um,
Okay.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go.
That's if you can't remember stuff like that, just remember the triangle. Okay, continue.
Okay. Right. So this is function questions. Then they stated each function f of x, g of x, and h of x, respectively here. And our first question is that we have to find h of 4. What's h of 4? So remember that h of x is 4 to the power of x, right, Yugen? I hope you agree with
Mm-hmm.
that. So if you want a h of 4, we're technically replacing x with 4, right? What
Mm-hmm.
used to be x here became 4 suddenly. So that means we have to put our x in here become a 4, right?
Yep.
So we have 4 to the power of 4. Put that in your calculator, or you can do it in your head if you're that good. Sure. You should get 156. And bam. Easy 1 mark. Next question. Fg of 1. So how to do this? So first we can find the value of g of 1. We can just put 1 here. Just put 1, 1. So that's just basically 1 square plus 1, which is 3. Of course not, it's 2 lah. I'm just kidding. When you, so when you get 2 here, g of 1 is equal to 2. That means this value, you put it in f. Correct? You
Mm.
put the value of 2 in f. That means we replace 2 here instead of instead of x, we have to put 2. That means 3 times 2 plus 2, correct? So 3 times 2 plus 2 is equal to 8. 3 times 6, 6 plus 2 is 8. So we have 8 here. Next one. Find g of x in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So remember that g of x is basically g inside has the input of f of x right here, correct? But what is f of x? They said in the question, it's a 3x plus 2. So we can replace it by 3x plus 2. Now we have g of 3x plus 2. Now what is g? G is of course right here. So instead of having x right here, we replace it by 3x plus 2, right, Yugan? So we replace, instead of x squared plus 1, we have 3x plus square plus 1. Now you can just simplify this by expanding this using the a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, sure. Then we have a squared, which is 9x squared, of course, plus 2ab, 3x times 2, that is 6. 6 times 2 again, that's 12, so 12x. Then we have 2 squared, which is just 4. And don't forget that we still have the plus 1. We can simplify this more. So we have 4 plus 1, which is 5. In total, we have this as our answer. Is this correct, Yugan?
Yep, that's correct.
All right. So next question. Find x when f of x is equal to g of 7. So first, of course, we have to look for what g7 is, right? Right. So we just have to put 7 here. 7 squared. So 7 squared plus 1, that is 49 plus 1, 50. And remember that f of x is just 3x plus 2, so we can simply replace it. Now we just have to solve for x here. You can bring the 2 in your side, so 50 minus 2, that's 48. We have 3x is equal to 48, divide by 3 both sides, we should get x is equal to 16. Agree, Yugan?
Yeah.
Right, that's our answer. Easy 2 marks. Next one, we have to find f inverse x. I think you made a mistake here of the notation.
Oh yeah, that's a no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me
it should be f to the power of negative 1x.
Hackerman. Okay. Right. So we have f. We need to find f inverse of x, correct? So my method is that you make f of x into y first, then you make x the subject. So right here, I make x the subject. You can bring. Oh wait, no, sorry. I swap every y and x's first. So right here, instead of having a y, it becomes an x, and instead of x, it becomes a y. Right, Yugan? And from here, we can make y the subject. So we can bring minus 2 here. We can put this here. So it becomes minus 2, x minus 2. Don't forget to divide by 3. So we have y is equal to x minus 2 divided by 3. Once you made y the subject, that is your f inverse of x. So this is our answer here. But you have a different method, right? Can you tell us your method?
It's not really much different. It's just straight away rearranging it to find x in terms of f of x, and then that would be your inverse if you swap the f of x. So for anyone who doesn't really understand why we are swapping the x and y, it is because when you inverse a function, you are reflecting it in the line y equals to x. So you are changing all the y's to x and x to y, and then you will solve for y, and then that would be another line. So in this case, it is x minus 2 all over 3. Yeah, you can move on.
Okay. So thank you for that, Yugan. Let's go for the next question. Tanya plants some seeds. The probability that a seed will produce flowers is 0.8. When a seed produces flowers...
Did you skip a slide?
No.
Oh, okay. Just carry on.
Okay. The probability that a seed will produce flowers is 0.8. When a seed produces flowers, the probability that the flowers are red is 0.6. And the probability that the flowers are yellow is 0.3. Oh, there's a pop-up, sorry. Tanya has a seed that produces flowers. Find the probability that the flowers are not red and not yellow. So it cannot be red or yellow, correct? That means we have to take 1. 1 is the total total possibilities, don't forget about that, minus the probability when it's red. So we have to take red off, 0.6. And we also have to take yellow off, which is 0.3. So in total, we have 1 minus 0.6 minus 0.3, and that's just 0.1. Is this the correct answer?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go for the next question. So it's just the same question, and we just have to complete the tree diagram. So right here, the probability that it produces flowers is 0.8. That means if it doesn't, it's just 1 minus 0.8, which is just 0.2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it produces flowers, the probability that it becomes red is 0.6. So we put 0.6 here. Same thing for yellow, it's 0.3, so put 0.3. Other colors are what we found before, which is 0.1. Agree then. So that's your
Yep.
easy 2 marks. Anything you want to add here, Yukan?
No, this is very straightforward probability calculation.
Okay. So next question then. Find the probability that a seed is chosen at random produces red flowers. That means we need to get the probability that if you want a seed that produces red flowers, it should satisfy that it produces a flower first, correct? That means we have the 0.8. It means that it produces flower. Now, what are the chance of getting a red flower is 0.6. So that means you have to multiply them, correct? 0.8 times 0.6, that's just 0.48. Is that the answer, Yun?
Yep, that's the answer.
Okay. So Tanya chooses a seed at random. Find the probability that the seed does not produce red flowers and does not produce yellow flowers. Right. So probability that the seed does not produce red flowers and does not produce yellow flowers. Right. So she gets a seed. And the outcome cannot be this one. Correct? Because that's what the question asks. Not red or yellow. That means the only outcome possible is only this one. Either getting not producing a flower or other colors than red or yellow. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. That means you just have to add the probability. We have 0.2 plus 0.8 times 0.1. So right here we have what I said before, of course. So we got 0.28. Is that correct, Yugen?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Anything you want to add here?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. All right. So next question. Two of the seeds are chosen at random. Find the probability that one produces flowers and one doesn't produce flower. Right. So there are two possibilities for these two seeds. Either the first one produces flower and the second one doesn't, or the first one doesn't and the second one does. Right? It's either yes, no, or no, yes. Correct? So to add those two possibilities, so the first one is that when it produces flower, so this is a yes and this is when it's a no. Right? Same thing for the other one. But this time it's the no and the yes. So that means we have to add them together, the possibilities. We should get 0.32. And this is your answer. Easy 3 marks, just like this.
Yeah.
Correct answer?
Yeah, that's the correct answer.
Okay. Anything you want to add here, Yugan?
Oh, no, nothing to add.
Oh, okay. Right. So let's go for the next question. Triangle ABC is mathematically similar to triangle PQR. The area of the triangle ABC right here is 16 centimeters square. Calculate the area of the triangle PQR. So what does it mean when shapes are similar in math, Yugen?
So when you're talking about, let's say, triangles, all the angles are the same.
But different size, correct? They may be different size.
They're different side lengths, but because of the same angles, the ratios between the sides should be the same.
Exactly. So let's calculate triangle PQR. So I'll write the area of the triangle PQR as x cm square. Right here. That means the ratio between their areas has to be the same, correct? Because they're similar. So x divided by 16 has to equal the sides divided. So in this case, it should be correspondingly. So it's 12 divided by 8. But remember that this is area, so you have to square it. This is side, right? Side, so you have to square it. Or you can think of it like this is cm square, and this is cm. To make the equation satisfy each other, they have to be cm square on both sides. Yeah. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. Don't forget about the square here if you're comparing length with area. So of course we can just multiply 16 both sides. So you have 16 times 12 over 8 square, and you should get 36. Is this the correct answer, Yugan?
Yeah, that's the
All
correct
right.
answer.
Then just put that in, and that's it. You gonna add anything?
Yeah, Devan's way, what he showed is the easiest way to do it. But also because you have the area and the side length, you can find the height and then find the ratio and then find the height on the other triangle and then calculate the area from there. You would get 36 as well. But that's kind of a lengthy process for a 2 mark question. You should know that the ratios between the heights would be the same as 12 over 8 anyway, so you would square it and then equate it to x over 16.
Exactly. All right. So next question, yeah. The triangles are cross sections of prisms, which are also mathematically similar. The volume of the small prism is 320 centimeter cube. Calculate the length of the larger prism. Okay, sure. Right. So that means this triangle right here is basically a prism. So you have the triangle and you stretch it. You just stretch it and it will be a prism, correct, Ethan? Right. So first, I'd like to know what's the volume of the larger prism, of course. And they told us the small prism has a volume of 320. That means we want to look for the bigger prism, right? All right. So we have to calculate the volume for the bigger prism first. So we can do that. So it's the same thing as before. We have the larger area and larger volume divided by the smaller volume. It's the same as the length, their corresponding length, divided. So we have 12 divided by 8. But remember that this is volume. That means we have to cube it.
Yep.
Okay. So you cube it, and we can solve for x here. So we can just multiply 320 here, and you should get 1080p. No, just kidding. Right. So we have that the bigger volume is 1080, and we have to look for the length, basically how much that the prism is stretched to become that larger prism. So, okay. Where did you get 36 from?
The area of the, the 36 is the area of the face. You would multiply that by the length to get the volume.
I forgot about it. Oh my god. Okay. Right. So if you want to get the length, of course you want to divide by the area of this triangle, correct? That sorry about that. So we have the volume divided by area of this cross section. It would give us the length, which is 30. That means our answer is just 30 centimeters. Correct, Yugan?
Yep.
Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, the length of the volume of any prism is the face multiplied by the length. So something like a cylinder, you can consider that as a circle prism. So the volume of that would be pi r squared times the length, or a square prism would be x squared times the length, or something like that. So yeah, when they say prism, and they give an area, like let's say they already give the area as 16 or 36 or something like that, you know how to deal with that kind of problem.
Yep, correct. So let's move on to the next question. A cylinder with radius 6 and height h centimeters has the same volume as a sphere with radius 4.5. Find the value of h. So before that, we have to remember what's the formula for the volume of a cylinder. Right, Yugan? So do you remember what is it?
No, I just said pi r squared times h.
You just said it before? Wait, what?
Yeah, I said it in my example.
Oh, Oh, yeah. Oops. All right. Whatever. All right. So we have pi r square h, which is right here. I wrote pi r square h, where r is 6, so we put 6. We don't know what the h is. We have to find what the h is. Now it says that the volume of the sphere is here is 4/3 pi r cubed. They're really nice. They give us the formula for the volume of the sphere. So we just have to input that then. We have 4/3 pi, but the radius, remember the radius is just 4.5. Just put that in. Right, Egan? Right, and we just have to find h. So how do we find h? We first can cancel the pi. The pi cancels, and we can divide 6 square both sides. So we would have this expression. You can put that in your calculator, and you should get 3.375. And that's our answer. Right, Yugan?
Yep, that's the final answer.
Okay. Then easy 3 marks. A solid metal cube of side 20 centimeters is melted down and made into 40 solid spheres, each of radius r centimeters. Find the value of r. So a solid metal cube of size 20 centimeters. What's the volume of that? So a volume of a cube is just its side times itself 3 times. So it's basically the side cubed to the power of 3. So we have 20 to the power of 3, 20 cubed, that's just 8,000 centimeter cube. That's the volume of the metal cube, right?
Yep.
Now this metal cube is going to be divided into 40 solid spheres. So we have to divide the volume by 40. That would represent the volume of each sphere made, correct? Right. So when we do that, we get 200 centimeter cube. Now we want to look for the r. So we know that 200 is the volume of each sphere. That means we just have to equate that to our sphere formula, the volume of the sphere. Just equate that. Make r the subject. We can divide this, and we can take the cube root, and you should get this expression. Put that in your calculator, and you should get 3.63. Agree? Is this correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Anything you want to add here?
No, this is just very straightforward calculation.
Okay then. So let's go for the next question. Write x squared plus 8x minus 9 in the form of x plus k squared plus h, or in other words, in complete square form. Right. So the trick is, how do I get a 16 minus 16 here? What do you think, Yuga? How do I get that?
Because when you want to put it in complete square form, you would do x squared plus 8x, and then your 8 divided by 2 squared, which would be 16. And then, of course, you can't change the value of your equation, so you have to do minus 16 as well.
All right. Yep, that's correct. So basically, when I add 16 and minus 16, I'm basically adding 0, so it doesn't change the whole thing, right? I'm not doing anything illegal. But how I got 16 is that I divide 2 here. 8 divided by 2 is 4. But 4 squared is 16. So this is basically 4 squared, right? 4 squared is 16, so I'll put 16 minus 16. What's the reason I do this? Now, if you notice that this part here is actually x plus 4 squared. Agree, you good? Agree? The whole thing is just x plus 4 squared, so I'm going to simplify it that way. Now, at the right side, well, you just have to simplify. What's minus 16 minus 9? It's just minus 25. So we have this as our answer. And tada, 2 marks. Okay.
That's right.
Next question. Use your answer in part AI to solve the equation. Yeah, this one. So because we know that this is, this can be written this way in a complete square form way. So we can just instantly just replace that. So we have this equation right here, x plus 4 squared minus 25 is equal to 0. Make 25 to the other side and take the square root. But remember, if you take the square root, don't forget your plus minus. Don't forget your plus minus. So if x plus 4 is equal to plus minus 5. When we bring minus 4 to the other side, there'll be negative 4. So we have 2 cases here, positive or negative 5. So let's take the positive one first. So we have 5 minus 4. That is 1. Or you take the negative, -5, -4, that's just -9. Agree, you get? Right, and that's our answer. Is it correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Anything to add here?
Uh, no. I guess some students do find it kind of confusing how to complete the square. Uh, we don't really have too much time to explain it. So this is something that if you are struggling with, you do have to revise because this is a very sound, solid way to solve for x to get your inverse of a function in this form and stuff like that. It is a very useful tool to apply to a quadratic equation.
That's correct. That's correct. It's actually useful sometimes in Olympiads when you want to find minimums or
Hmm.
maximum functions. But yeah, right. So let's go for the next question. The solutions to the equation x squared plus bx plus c are these two. Find the value of b and c. That means these are the roots of the equation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That means because these are the roots, I can factorize the equation like this. That means if I factorize the equation somehow, it should be a linear multiplication of their roots, right? X minus their roots, correct?
Uh-huh.
Right. So we can just once we have this, we just have to expand. So x times x is just x squared. Next one, we have x times this guy, and this guy times x, correct?
Yep.
Now we can factorize the negative out, and notice that it's just the addition of these two roots, right?
Mm.
Same thing for the last one. There'll be this junk times this junk, and you should be getting this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can simplify this, of course. If you notice that right here, the root of 61 will cancel, and you'll have -14/2, and that's just -7. But because there's a negative here, you get +7, right? Right?
Yep.
Same thing for the other one. If you notice that the top is actually just a difference of square, or you actually don't have to do this, just put in your calculator and you should get -3. But if you're quite ambitious, yeah, you notice that these two are difference of squares. This is just 49 minus 61 divided by 4. Why 4? Because 2 times 2. Once you get that, you should get -3, and this should be your answer. X squared plus 7x minus 3. So we just write down what B and C is 7 and minus 3. Anything on the add here?
Yeah, your way of doing it was actually quite long. So one other way you could do it is if you look at the roots, right? Because when you do your quadratic equation, it is in the form x equals to -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So from that, you can automatically pull out that -7 must be -b, and your b is 7, and then do your b squared minus 4ac equals to 61, and then solve for c. Another way you can also do it is take your two roots and add it together, and that would be b, and your two roots multiplied by each other would equal to c. But yeah, that's also another way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Right.
I didn't think of that. Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that, you guys.
Yeah, this way would probably be it would take quite a while.
Right. So let's go for the next question. Sketch the graph y is to x minus 1 squared. Right. So that means that this graph has to touch a 0 at 1, because when you put 1 here, it just becomes 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also that we know that this graph doesn't go under 0. That means it only touches the graph 1 and go back up, and which is what we have here. This one. So, okay. Now we sketch the graph of y is equal to half x plus 1. So this is just a straight line graph. I'm sure you're familiar with it, where the y-intercept is just 1 and the gradient is half. Oh, sorry.
Pop up, David.
Yes. Okay. Right, so the y-intercept is 1 and the gradient is half, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that means it should pass through 1 here, and the gradient is just half. And notice that actually pass through the other equation here.
Mm-hmm.
If you put 0, this is just 1. If you put 0 here, 0 minus 1 is just -1, and you square it, you get 1. And this is
Mm-hmm.
that means the y coordinate of this is really 1.
Mm.
Okay. So now we're done with that. We get our 4 marks. Let's go for the next question. The graphs of y equal to x minus 1 squared and y is equal to half x plus 1 intersect at a and b. Find the length of AB. So of course, if you know find where a and b is, we have to do simultaneous equation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that means we can equate them together. So we equate these two together, which is what we have here. So we can expand the square term, and we can see that the 1 will cancel. This one will cancel. Then we can move everything to the other side. Right. So from here, we can factor out. You see that there's no constant term. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
plus 2 or plus 3 or whatever. We can just
Yeah.
factorize the x, and we'll have this. All right. So there are two answers. X is equal to 0, and x is equal to 5 by 2. Because when you put 5 by 2 here, this whole thing becomes 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have two answers here. Now we know what the x is. We just have to look for what the y is. When you put x is 0, I prefer using this one because it's easier, right? Better than squaring.
Yeah, yeah.
So we put 0 here, and bam, you get 1. And you should get 1 here. Same thing when you put 5 over 2, just put in the x. You can just use your calculator for that. You should get 9 over 4. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now we know the two coordinates. Let's call it A, let's call it B. It doesn't really matter. Anything you want. Now the question is, how do I get the length? You can.
Oh, okay. So you would have to find the change in y and the change in x, and then you would have a right angle triangle, and you can use Pythagoras.
Exactly. So right here, we have the change in x, which is just 5 over 2. How do you go from 0 to 5 over 2? Of course, you just have to add 5 over 2, correct?
Mm.
So same thing for the y. To get the change, we just have to do 9 by 4 minus 1,
Mm.
which is what we have here. But remember, this is Pythagoras. Don't forget to square it and take the square root, and you should get 2.8 as your answer. Is this the correct answer?
Yeah, that's the correct answer.
Okay. Easy 7 marks. Imagine. Just like this, you get 7 marks. Can you
It's
imagine?
7. Okay, I didn't know that. But yeah, this really isn't much for 7 marks.
Yeah.
Also, if you could go back to your sketch, just to show the right angle triangle I was talking about, in case anyone doesn't understand why we are using that.
Oh, okay.
Just
So
mark the coordinates, and then you can draw the.
like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, right?
Yeah. That's all,
Okay.
and then you find your change in y and change in x. So that's the formula you use for any 2 points if you want to find the distance between them.
Mm.
It
Okay,
is just
okay.
Pythagoras.
Right. So let's go for the next question, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So we have y is equal to x to the power 4 minus 4x cubed. Find the value of y when x is equal to minus 1. This is actually a new syllabus where calculus is introduced in IGCSE Maths. Right. Just have to put x minus 1. Just put it here. Bam, bam. You can put this in your calculator, and you should get 5. And you get your 2 marks. Wow, imagine you just have to put minus 1, you get 2 marks. Easy.
Yeah.
All right. Now next one is find the two stationary points of the equation. Of this equation, basically. So if you want to find the stationary points, remember you have to take the derivative of this equation. So when you take the derivative, remember by the power rule, let's say we have x to the power of n. If you're going to take the derivative, it's just you bring down the power and x to the power of n minus 1. Basically, the power, you reduce it by 1. So the same thing is happening right here. We have x to the power of 4. We bring down the power, so we have 4x But remember the 4 minus 1, so you have 3 up here.
Mm.
Agree? So same thing
Yeah.
for x cubed, but you bring down 3, so you have 4 times 3, that'll be 12. 3 minus 1, that'll be 2. So that means the derivative is just 4x cubed minus 12x squared. But we have the gradient function, the function that tells us what's the gradient at that point. We want to find the two stationary points. That means we have to equate this thing to 0, right? Right. So we equate that to 0. We can just simplify a bit more. We can divide 4 both sides. We have x cubed minus 3x squared is equal to 0. It has an x squared term in both terms, so we can factor it out. So we have this. That means our answer should be x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 3. Agree?
Yeah.
Right. So we have these 2 points. You just have to find the y value. So we can just put 0 here. And we put 3 also in here. So right here, I've already written it. When you put 0, you get y is equal to 0. When you put 3, you'll get negative 27. And those are your 2 points. As simple as that. 6 marks. Very easy. Imagine. This is free grades right here.
And yeah, that is the correct answer.
Okay. So next question. We have y is equal to x to the power of p plus 2x cubed. dy dx is equal to 11x to the power of 10 plus 10x to the power of 4, where dy dx is a derived function. Find the value of p and the value of q. Okay. So that means you just have to equate the coefficients. Basically, let's take the derivative of this. Remember, as I said before, you bring down the power, so you have p here, and then p minus 1. So you have the power is p minus 1. Same thing for this one, you have 2q, because you bring down the q, and then the power, you minus 1, so you have q minus 1 right here. Now they said this thing has to be the same with this expression, correct? So as you can see, I think this is already quite simple, that p is indeed 11, and q is just 5, because when you put q is 5, you get 2 times q, 2 times 5, which is 10. Right? When you put 5 here, minus 1 is just 4. So I think this is quite simple. P is equal to 11 and q is equal to 5. And that's an easy 2 marks, and we're done with the paper. Anything you want to add, Yukan?
Because this is a 2-mark question, you can automatically write just 11 and 5. Because if you look at the powers and then they give you dy dx, if you just add 1 to the power, you will get the power of the x term in the original equation. So obviously 10 plus 1 is 11 and 4 plus 1 is 5. But if apparently they give you marks if you do the dy dx as well. So you will get that mark if you don't write down the answers. So yeah, just make sure you write down the answers. You don't actually have to do any working for this question.
Yep. All right. So that's all for the paper, and this is the new topic in the IGCSE Maths, right? For the new syllabus, differentiation is now exists in IGCSE Maths. So what do you think of the paper, Yukan?
This was quite an easy paper. It's really lengthy though. So yeah, very tedious paper, and this is our longest episode with the PowerPoint. 1 hour, nearly 30 minutes. So,
yeah, it's nearly 1.5. God, that was tiring. Even my throat is kind of sore, but it's okay. Not a big problem.
All right. So obviously, good luck to those taking this paper. It is going to be quite a ball for you guys. Maybe writing it out won't be. It might be a bit less boring due to the exam stress. Do you have any final words, Devan?
Yeah, I guess that's it. Make sure to practice, and you remember that you have to remember those formulas. You better practice a lot so that the formulas will just be ingrained to your mind easily. The more you use it, the more you'll remember it.
All right. Oh, Sparkle says thank you so much. It was really helpful. And and another guy says, when you take A-level class, I don't entirely know what you mean, but if you're talking about the A-level papers, we've already done all of them except for further math. So further math will be next Friday and
This
after
Friday.
that,
Yeah, this Friday.
this Friday, and the 3 Wednesdays and Fridays after that, along with the AMA session at the end. So that's it for today. I hope all of you enjoyed this session and learned something valuable. Thank you, Devan, for taking your time to do this session. Please follow our social media shown on the next screen if you aren't following already, and do join our ZNotes Discord. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good night.
Yep. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you for the further maths paper in this Friday. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time.